Everybody ready?
Yes, sí, señor. Ándale.
All right, so welcome to the 2019 annual meeting. Glad to see everybody here. Has everybody turned in their ballots? I have not turned mine in yet. So, we're going to count the ballots right up here in front of everybody, so no questions. All envelopes will be saved, separated, but everything's internal, so it's all anonymous. Nobody will know who voted for who, but we will have a permanent record that everybody voted. We will need a count. Do you know how many ballots we've received yet?
She's got them after this, they're
Okay. We'll need a count as soon as possible to make sure we have a quorum to go forward with some of the things we're trying to accomplish here tonight.
Well, we haven't closed the voting. Didn't we say we were going to keep it open?
Yeah, voting is not closed. As long as we're counting, we're going to accept ballots if people are running late, just so they have time to get here and bring them in. But once the group says, we're done counting, that's when we're going to cut it off and be able to move forward. What else here? Okay, so that's it for that. Again, welcome. We're calling to order, or have called to order. Candy, you I'll share this with you. This has some of my notes that are a little bit expanded, just so you can see where we're going. First off, I wanted to just give you a little update on everything we've done this year, which, when I list them out, it's probably not going to sound like a whole lot, but let me tell you, it was a bunch of work. First and foremost, the biggest thing that we did was revitalize the covenants and restrictions. That took us well over a year of working on, and these things are back in our hands, recorded in the public record, and fully enforceable once again. They were not enforceable for almost 15 years. Yeah. Now, the board has been carrying on, been doing business as an association. We and prior boards have been collecting dues, been managing the neighborhood, been investing or saving the road fund, putting money aside. As you will hear as we go on, and you've seen, we're asked for a vote here. The money that we've been collecting is just not quite enough to get us where we need to go to redo our roads in the very near future when they need to be done. So we are working on a little more aggressive plan for doing that. We have readjusted the budget several times. Our treasurer, Clay, is not here with us tonight. He has a family emergency and will not be able to join us. But I want you to know that Clay has been a godsend for our neighborhood. He's done so much for us to learn QuickBooks and fill in as treasurer and keep track of everything and move us along. He set up a neighborhood website for us, posting all of our documents, going to be able to post all of our minutes, all of our newsletters. It's a really nice looking website so far. If you haven't seen it, please make sure you do. It's HuntingtonEstatesHOA.org, and there's a bunch of stuff there, and a lot more to come. We can share pictures, we can share announcements, we can put notices out there, everything we want. It's just very flexible, and all it needs is somebody to keep giving it attention and filling it up. So we have a few people who volunteer. I think Sam's going to help out a little bit with the website, help keep content updated. It's going to be in an area where any number of people on the board will have access to be able to update. We're looking at the ability to have a partitioned website that I think will cost us a little bit more money if we do it, but we're investigating to be able to have a private side with a password for all the homeowners and a public side for what we want everybody else to see to help advertise our neighborhood. So we're making good progress on that. Again, the biggest, most important thing that the board has done this year with a lot of legwork and a lot of time involved is getting the covenants restrictions revitalized. Okay. That is something we had to do. They were expired by law. We didn't have the authority to collect dues. We didn't have the authority to enforce anything. We now have that again. So kudos to the board for all the time put into it. It was a lot of work. We had to spend a fair amount of money on printing, on mailing costs, submittal to the DEO for review. Yes?
They should see what their money
Oh,
bought.
yeah.
Yes, they're a
We,
big, nice
instead of
little printer.
paying for a print shop to do it, we spent $100 on a printer, and we've been printing our own documents this year, and that's saved us a lot of money. We had a bid last year from a law firm. It was local. The attorney we hired passed away, and our law firm became remote. But they had given us a bid of $6,000 to $10,000. Pretty sure they could do it for $8,000 to do all this revitalization for us, and we wouldn't have to do anything. With Terry prodding and making the right phone call, got a hold of the right person, found out that, well, we really don't need an attorney. Sorry. This is our new attorney. I'm going to introduce him in a minute. Yeah, it would have been a whole lot easier with an attorney. It sure would have been. But instead of spending $8,000 of y'all's money, of our money, your money, we spent a little over $1,000. We got it done.
Thank you, Terry.
There's a big savings from last year's budget. We budgeted $8,000 last year for this purpose. We spent a little over $1,000, maybe $1,200. We also had some cutbacks and budget things that we've done. We eliminated a few lights. Some people weren't happy about that, but we were lighting up an area that was not part of our neighborhood, and that was costing us about $100 a month for 3 street lights out on St. Louis Church Way. We cut that out. That has saved us $1,200 a year. We went and talked to Esposito's, and this was last year we did a lot of this. Well, 2018, right? In 2018. But it's catching up, and we're seeing the results this year. We were able to talk to Esposito's. They took a look at their contract and realized they had been escalating on natural increases to the point where they were charging us more than they were charging other people. So they re-evaluated our contract and cut it back. We saved another over $1,000 a year on lawn care. With those changes and other things that we've been very careful, we just didn't spend money on maintenance, on anything, because we didn't have governing documents that said we could do anything. So we didn't spend anybody's money, just in case people voted and said, nope, we don't want CNRs back, we want our money back. So we didn't spend it. Okay, we're making a plan to improve that budget this year now that we have everything back. But because we've made those changes, we've been able to, out of the money that we have been collecting, $400 a year from everybody, we had a commitment by majority vote to put $125 of everybody's $400 into the road fund. With our adjustments to the budget, we've determined that we can put an additional $40. That's still not going to get us where we need to go. That's still going to be quite a bit short. So we're looking into investment plans that are slightly more aggressive than the almost non-interest producing accounts that we've had the money in. We will get a little better return and still be a little bit short. We had a bid last year that said we have about 5 years left on our roads. That was last year. So based on this year, assuming that still holds, in about 4 years, we need to redo our roads. Even with a conservative 4% return on our investment and the adjustments we've made, we're still coming up $75 short. It's about $25,000 to $28,000, and $75 extra from everybody for the next 4 years to make up that difference. Properly invested with the return on that investment as well, and we will get to the goal that we were given last year. Now, there's still probably going to be some inflation in 5 years, 4 years. Hopefully we will get where we need to be when the roads really, really need attention. That's why we ask everybody for an increase in dues. We just can't get there. If we don't do it, if we continue doing what we're doing right now, we will never get where we need to be. We're going to go over the numbers in a little bit. You'll see we need $300,000. At last year's dollar amount, we could have done it for $300,000. In 5 years, we sure expect it to be more than that. But we have $180,000 to put into the roads right now. We need another $120,000, probably quite a bit more than that, including inflation. So we have a plan to get there, and that's why we ask you all for some help to do it. Okay? The other thing that we did do recently at the October meeting, if y'all saw the newsletter, we did adopt guidelines for approvable property improvements, detached structures. Everybody, the bad word is sheds. It's not just sheds. It is detached garages. It is pool houses, guest houses, which were already allowed. So it's not much of a stretch there. It could include a gazebo. It could be, any of these things are defined in our guiding documents as property improvements. What we've done in accordance with the Florida statutes is come up with guidelines for consistent approval to protect the integrity of the neighborhood. If you haven't seen those, they are posted on the public record. They are posted on our website. We have a draft version of a registration form or application form if you want to apply to the architectural committee for some sort of property improvement. There's a document there that you can fill out. We're going to beef it up a little more to make sure it's really easy to fill out and easy to make sure we get a complete application. We will be consistently reviewing and approving those requests. And with that, I think I left you with a few questions. I'm going to introduce Jeremy Anderson. We have just recently, last week, hired him to represent us. We will, because he has great experience, he is local, we can get in touch with him. Our attorney from out of town was taking over 2 weeks to respond to questions. And Jeremy came very highly recommended. So,
well, thank you for the introduction. Jeremy Anderson. I'm the managing partner of the Anderson Gibbons Fredericks Law Firm. We represent about 250 HOAs and condos and even cooperatives from Cape San Blas down to Sarasota. Our main office is here in Tallahassee, and that's where I'm based. And we have an office down in Sarasota as well. I've been doing this about almost 14 years now. And when I graduated law school from FSU, I moved down to Sarasota, very homeowners association condo friendly. Far more advanced than we are here. We're kind of on our own little island, kind of the Wild West. And then about 5.5 years ago, I moved back with my wife, started the firm up here. But I had a lot of clients who just wanted my services down in Sarasota as well, so we established the office down there, have attorneys down there that assist. But my job is, I'm hired to the board of directors, but my role is to make sure that your board of directors acts in the best interest of the entire association. I don't represent you individually as owners, but I represent your interests. I try to make sure that the board is, acting in accordance with the law, doing the right things. I assist with things such as document interpretation, document revisions. I know one of the things that we were talking about is you have 40-year-old documents that were written by the developer. A lot of things have changed over time. Maybe the age of the residents here, the demographics, the needs of the community have changed. We need to think about how these things can change to make it better work for you now and another 30, 40 years into the future. So I assist associations with that. I also assist with operation and the meetings, make sure that we're doing the voting properly, establishing quorums, addressing any issues that come up during the meetings. Assessment collection. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and we were just talking about MRTA, you expired documents. Unfortunately, because of the lack of sophistication by the attorneys here locally, a lot of attorneys allow deed restrictions to expire. The same counsel that was representing your association for quite some time, they expired prior to her, I believe, being retained, but she didn't even know that they expired. Unfortunately, she represented a community with 5,000 owners that their deed restrictions expired, which cost substantially more than $1,000. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix that mistake. And it's just because the attorneys here don't keep themselves up to date with the laws. One thing that my firm does is we do a lot of lecturing to condo and HOA managers, and we do presentations, educational courses for board of directors as well, because we want to keep everybody apprised of the laws. You make sure that everybody's aware of all the little nuances. So for instance, you just mentioned these new rules you adopted, a little tweak in the law, unintended consequence of last year's amendment now requires all board rules to be recorded. So we're gonna have to get on that board rule, record that in the public records. Previously, board rules didn't have to be recorded, but just a comma in a sentence now requires that. So things like that, keep your board in line, make sure they're doing things that are gonna be in compliance with the law. Assessment collections. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, oh gosh, I paid my assessments the entire time. Some people didn't pay the assessments. What are we going to do about that? Well, the 30 years for the expiration of the restrictions doesn't necessarily mean it expired to everybody after 30 years. Everybody's lot expires on a lot-by-lot basis. So what your board's going to do is those owners that are delinquent, I'm going to take a look at those free of charge and examine and say, oh, do they have something in their chain of title that actually kept the restrictions going for their lot? If so, we're going to pursue the normal course of liening them, foreclosing them if they don't pay. And then we're also going to review the amounts. If it's a substantial amounts, there are creative ways that we still may be able to pursue cost effectively those delinquent owners. So don't think anybody's getting off scot-free. We're going to try to make sure everybody pays their fair share for your roads in accordance with what everybody thought they bought into, even if the deed restrictions may have been expired. Going forward, talk to the board. My firm, we have a collection process that's going to allow you to not allow people to get delinquent in the future. We think we're so good at what we do. We don't bill the association up front for our services on that. We hold that and then bill the owner, the delinquent owner, our fees. So you have no out of pocket, and it incentivizes you as an association to pursue collections on more aggressively, so you don't let people get $800, $1,000, $2,000 behind, because that harms every one of you. And one of the things that Mr. President identified is you need all the money you can get to make sure you have money for your roadways, and that's very important for your community. So that's the plan we have going forward. Looking back to see who we can collect against, but then also going forward. Let's see. And in fairness, we're going to do it across the board for everybody. So there is going to be no selective, oh, that's my buddy, I'm not going to foreclose on them or pursue collections. We're going to make sure that not only your collection process, but also any enforcement is going to be evenly across the board as well. I don't like to play the games where we're picking out certain individuals. Even, fair, and transparent is the way I like to operate. And I think that's it. I could probably talk all night, but I'll let you get back to your meeting. Very pleased and thank you for retaining our firm, and we're going to do good work for you.
Thank you.
I have questions for Jeremy. I'd like to stress something he said, and I think you all heard it, but I want to make sure everybody hears it, because I've heard from several people in the discussion about we need more money for the roads. I've heard people say, well, that person are not paying, why should I? I'm not going to pay till you make them. What Jeremy's telling you is that because our covenants were expired, we didn't have the authority to collect. And because they're expired, we don't have the authority to go back necessarily under our governing documents as we would normally do. Now they're active. The process is you don't pay, we file a lien. That's as soon as they're delinquent. Now they're due January 1st. They are past due March 1st. They start collecting interest April 1st, but they're past due March 1st. So if they're not paid by March 1st, a lien notice will go out. Those people who have chosen not to pay for years, I don't think I see any of them here, they're going to get a rude awakening when they get a notice in the mail that says, guess what, you didn't pay, we're going to file a lien if you don't. That's for starting next year. that tool cannot be used to go back and get the old dues, the
And-
past ones. We're
But
gonna
I'm-
find ways, if we can, we're going to make every effort to go back after the old ones. But that's for the expert to figure out. Going forward, the plan is, you don't pay by March 1st, you're gonna get a notice that says, you have 45 days to pay this or lien's getting filed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I heard you say is, when you file the lien, immediately you file the next letter that says, within 45 days, we're foreclosing on your property.
And even
That
the big,
seems harsh, but that's already in our old documents, it's in the Florida statute, that is the process. There is a way to get neighbors to pay their fair share.
you ding them once and they'll start doing it. So yes, we don't want to be mean to our neighbors, but they all need to pay because all of you here are paying. And it's not fair that you're coming out of pocket and they get to utilize the services of having your roadway and, you know, paying for the cost of the printing and the mailing and all these things. So we're just gonna let them know that my friendly letter says pay or we'll put a lien, and usually it just takes once and then it gets everybody knowing that, okay, these are the rules of the road. And occasionally you'll have some people that fall behind accidentally, and we'll get those resolved as well.
I like the idea of you being the big bad wolf.
Well, and what I really like for all of us is that it's not money out of our pocket. He's delaying his fee, and he's gonna collect it from the person who chooses not to pay their dues.
Hey, I know-
Leanna had a question first.
I know you haven't opened it up, but in regard to that, you've gotten some response already from the letters that he has sent out?
We did send out letters to, we have 12, and
Yeah.
we had one person who followed through and paid their dues.
Ooh, fun.
No word, no nothing.
No contact at all from the others.
Past due dues?
Right,
Yes.
that's right, including this year. So we will continue to do everything we can to collect that, but starting January 1st of 2020, it's a whole new ballgame. Yes, sir.
Do you have a total on past dues, dollar amount?
It's approximately $22,000.
22?
Yes, sir.
That are due?
That have not been paid. That's right. And that's coming from, what, 8 different people? Well, it's
Yeah,
actually.
it was a total of 12 people,
It was
but now
12.
it's 11, so.
So it's
one of them's
11, but about
caught up.
half of those 11 are just for this calendar year, so they're 1 year behind. We have 2 or 3 of them that are many years behind, and have been for a long time.
And that is with interest accrued. But Liliana had
Yes,
tried
I'm
to.
sorry.
That's interesting. My question is to Mr. Anderson. With regards to the past dues,
Yes, ma'am.
you seem to imply that perhaps you were gonna look to see if there's any loophole or something where you can re-trigger and do charge the people for the old?
Yes. So a real, like, just layman's person, deed restrictions expiring, think of it from 1973, the original recording date, and 30 years. That is the first year that it could expire. Well, each of you have multiple, probably title transactions, meaning exchange of deeds. There's some exceptions to that expiration at 30 years, where you could have a transaction that created a new date, which moves it back. So until I look at their individual deeds, so when they send over the collection ledgers, I'll take a look and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones owe $2,000. I'll look back through their deeds and see, do I have a mechanism to make it under your old documents where they never expired, and we can lien them for it. If we don't, I still then can look at the dollar amount and try to determine, is there another equitable remedy that we could pursue them in, say, small claims court. I would give that option to the association, and then they would have to make a business judgment decision of, is it cost effective to pursue or not. So,
Those are things we would have to look at case by case to see if his charges are gonna outweigh what we might be able to collect. So, yes, ma'am.
You're saying 40 years, I thought it was 50 years.
All right,
You
so,
like that?
all right, so in your documents, it says they shall continue for 50 years. And this is where a lot of attorneys here in Tallahassee got it wrong. So you have what your original restrictions were, an internal agreement between all of you that they're going to work for 50 years. However, the legislature adopted a law that said, gosh, these title companies have to go back hundreds of years to get clean title, and it's costing too much money and taking too long to do title transactions. We need to find a cutoff date. So they adopted the Marketable Records Title Act that said 30 years, within 30 years of the root of title, if there's no encumbrances. And it was an accident when they adopted this law. They didn't realize that by adopting the law, it would impact deed restrictions. So even though it says 50 years in your deed restrictions, the statute actually makes it cut off. So if you would have properly preserved, so they, under the law, so they didn't expire, we would still be going by the 50 years. Now we've reinstated them, we started the 50 years all over again. But we have a 50 years and a 30-year timeline continues to run. So in 30 years, hopefully I'll get to preserve your restrictions so they don't expire. And,
So even though we restarted the 50 years, the statute is still there, and they
For the
will
30.
expire again in 30 years. So the 50 years is kind of immaterial at this point. So that's something we'll address as we go forward. A lot of these are very outdated. There's still a lot of stuff left in there that addresses the builder, the developer. There's a lot of obsolete stuff, a lot of things to clean up. We will be looking at revising these things with neighborhood involvement and clean up all the old stuff, match it up to the statute, and get it reflective of today's lifestyles.
Jeremy, regardless of whether it's 30 years or 50 years, by refreshing it, as John likes to call it, we still put the rules back in place as how to make changes, make votes, notification dates, everything is the same.
Okay. Most everything's the same. There are some things that are different. So for instance, there's a quorum requirements for various different things in your documents. Well, because at the date in 1973 when your community was created, there wasn't the HOA Act. The HOA Act actually says for a quorum, it's 30% for all items across the board. So there are things that are in your documents now that may apply. So if you have a higher quorum amount, not a threshold for voting, but a quorum amount, that means to start the meeting, it may be invalid. So
Notification date.
notification dates, yes, and notification dates may apply as well. You're
They're the
correct.
same.
Yeah, in most instances. So you have multiple notification dates, so because I'm being recorded, I don't want to say yes across the board, but most likely, most of the things are going to stay the same except for where the statute preempts it and doesn't give us any discretion.
Why would the statute preempt how much notification would we give members to vote on things?
I didn't say that. I said, in
That's what I'm
general, I
asking.
said across the board for all items in your documents, unless the statute preempts you, then it's going to stay the same.
So if it said 30 days in the old version and they didn't change anything, it's still 30 days.
Okay, yes, unless the statute preempts it. So we have to look at the specific circumstance. Again, you're just being very broad, but if you give me an example, then we can take a look at it and look at that and see if there's a portion of the statute that might.
One example, it says in the covenants that any changes to the covenant takes a 90-day written notice.
Okay?
Is that still the same?
Okay. Well, one of the things in your documents, that Article 3, it's the interpretation. So there's 3 different interpretations of that provision. So one of them is, and the actually sentence that precedes that talks about you have no actual amendment provisions for 50 years, and that's what your old attorney advised. And now you've become under the statute, and under that theory, it's a 2/3 vote, and that's the sentence that applies. The portion you're speaking to could be interpreted to only applying to amendments that occur after that 50-year period. So the 3-year application and also the 90 days provision for notice may or may not apply. So I know what you're getting at. So what he's asking is whether or not the specific, because you're voting on one of the documents tonight, whether or not that applies. I'm going to be getting with the board of directors after this meeting. We're still going to do the vote, because you have that out there. We're still going to tabulate the votes, and then I'm going to provide advice to the association, because there is multiple interpretations of that provision, on how to proceed, whether or not that vote is invalid or valid.
What about if the proposed change is contrary to the Florida statutes in terms of traffic?
In terms of traffic?
There seems to be a common understanding in here that these are private roads.
Okay.
They are not private roads. They are not blocked off. They are not gated. They are not private roads. They are privately maintained roads, which is a cop-out for a developer who doesn't want to pay the county's going rate for paving. And it throws the responsibility of keeping the roads up to the county's standards on us, not the county. But because we allow access through this neighborhood to everybody and not just emergency personnel, we fit the guidelines of public access roads.
Okay.
Which means vehicles allowed on public access roadways are those that are licensed by the Florida Department of Highway Safety.
Okay. All right. So I understand your argument. There are multiple communities around town that have the same concept. Actually, some have roadways that are not even privately maintained. However, what he was getting at is, can you restrict things on the roadways, vehicle types, sizes, parking, things like that within the roadways? And the argument is actually yes, because you as owners, it may be hard to enforce against somebody driving through, because who are you going to go after? But each and every one of you, by buying into this community and by revitalizing your documents, you've now agreed by private contract to do or don't do certain things. So if you have a deed restriction that specifically says that you're not going to, and I have a lot of Sarasota clients that just prohibit trucks. Like, I can't drive my Jeep there, I can't drive my truck there, they wouldn't have me in their community. But if we had a restriction that said you can't have a truck or park on the roadway, we could actually enforce that, even though that road, people can drive through. If you park on the roadway, we can say, no, you can't do that. Piney Z has public roads all the way. They're able to enforce it because every owner and every tenant, by living there, has agreed to the restrictions. So I respectfully disagree that it can't be restricted. I'm not in favor either way. I don't take positions, but I'm just telling you that the majority view.
My point of view is I'm retired law enforcement, as are several other people in this room. You cannot just take public access roads and say you can drive any damn thing on it you want to when the county and the state law says you can only drive vehicles that are licensed. And if we put in our documents that anything goes, and somebody is driving one of those anything goes vehicles and gets hit, we are going to get shit sued out of it.
Okay, so what I think, okay, so let me just respond. I don't think that we're not proposing to allow things or authorizing things that are unlawful to be written on the roadways.
Read what was presented to us. It takes everything out except noise.
Okay.
But there's a difference there.
No, John, there's not a difference.
Well,
There's not a difference. If you've got a rule that says what you can and can't drive, which beats the guidelines of the Florida traffic statutes, and then you just wipe that out, that means anything goes.
the difference is, we're not saying you can do whatever the heck you want.
That's what it says.
No, it just removed the restriction from being able to ride a
No,
motorcycle.
it does
or a
not. It
go-kart.
removes the restriction from being able to ride anything, John. Look at it. You guys wrote it.
But it
Look at
does,
it.
that's right. It takes away the
Okay,
infringement on people's rights.
If you want to allow motorcycles and do it and have the vote in a proper manner, then you change it to say that the only vehicles allowed on the roadways of Huntington Estates are those properly licensed by the Florida Department of Highway Safety. That includes motorcycles.
How
But it
many-
does not include ATVs, go-karts, golf carts, or anything else that can get you
If
killed and get us sued.
if the laws prohibit that, we don't have to say it too.
Jared?
So there are multiple, hundreds and thousands of communities within the state of Florida that don't specifically say ATVs are prohibited either on the public streets in front of them or on their own private roads, or private access roads that they can go through. Doesn't mean that the association, if they eliminate the language that's proposed, is saying, hey, everybody gets to violate the law. No, everybody still has an obligation to comply with the law. And what I think this is trying to say is these specific things, which were maybe with two-wheel or three-wheel vehicles, are no longer prohibited. You're still going to have an obligation as a citizen and a Florida resident to comply with the law.
But then you're leaving an argument open for a defense attorney to ask you why you changed it.
Okay. So
The more
I
loopholes
respectfully
you-
disagree that
Well,
where
you
it's,
can
so whether,
disagree. I did
but
it
again, it's not
my
my amendment. This is for you as the owner. Having this debate and on all these items is very healthy for the community to make sure you as a community have what you want in your documents. But the amendment as proposed can be adopted or denied as proposed. I hear your arguments, but it's across the state, similar amendments. So it's up to you as the owners whether or not that you would like to pursue the proposed amendment or not.
Yeah, you always have the ability to vote no if you don't like the wording.
I did.
Okay, and that's your right. I respect that. But we've had a lot of people request to be able to, especially motorcycles. The other stuff was just outdated. It was tied in with motorcycles because our neighborhood used to have a dirt bike track and the developer. Across our neighborhood and the others. I mean, from research I've had, is
Show
there,
me on the plat where that path is. I've been here since 1977, there were only about 12 houses at the time, and there was no path. I'm sorry, there were no paths.
the biggest part of the track that I understand was in the neighborhood behind us. That was going to be our phase 2. The developer was planning ahead. And this is coming to me from a very old Tallahassee realtor who was very involved in the development of this area and the Commonwealth area. And so that's the information I have. There was a dirt bike track there, and the developer did not want the dirt bikes tearing through his development. So he
Find a
put,
plat that shows that dirt path.
well, I don't think it would be on a plat, Ms. Cook. It was something that the kids made. Yeah, and I've talked to people who have been around a long time and said, oh yeah, I used to ride, Dave Whetstone, I used to ride my dirt bike through here all the time when I was growing up. Yeah, so it is what it is, but there is no harm in motorcycles riding on our roads. It's no different than a car.
I didn't say there was harm in John and riding motorcycles. I said make it meet the statute.
Secretary would like to make a comment if she could.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going on my second term here, and the last 2 years I've served as secretary, and I'm very proud to say that in my time serving on the board, we have been incredibly inclusive and transparent. We have tried, aside from a podcast, we have done, which maybe is the next step, but we have tried to do everything we can to include our members in our conversation, in our discussions, and in our concerns. And it's difficult to do when you don't have your members in attendance, but we understand people have their lives to live, but so do we. And so we volunteer our time, and we've dedicated a lot of time in trying to find other alternatives in media to reach out to our members. So while we appreciate your input and your comments, what makes it extremely difficult is when you get to this time of the year and suddenly you come out and you want to attack the things that we have been working on over this period of time. And so, not that we're going to tell you you don't have a right to attack, but when we've gotten to this point, where members have been included and they have had their input put into this. This is where we're at.
Andy, I raised these same concerns with John by email 2 weeks ago. As of today, he has yet to respond.
So I'm a problem solver. So I think I figured out your scenario. All right. If the owners approve it, and if all the other requirements are met for it to be a lawfully adopted amendment, so what it's eliminating is that, because the prohibition says no 2 or 3 wheel vehicles on the property. So your argument is that it's allowing all sorts of other uses that are unlicensed to use the roadways, and it's public access roadways. So what the board can do to eliminate that concern is, if that's adopted and eliminated, and under your theory it opens up to anybody and everybody to do what they want, the bylaws also allows the board of directors to adopt rules governing the use of the common areas, which would be those roadways, and governing the conduct. So what we could do is, board, you could adopt a rule to eliminate this concern that says any use of a motor vehicle that is not road licensed on our roads is prohibited. So that would address your concerns, and then if the owners wanted to allow motorcycles that were properly licensed, that could be done as well. So,
Language like DOT approved.
yeah, so if you want to provide some proposed language for us to consider that could satisfy what you think with DOT, I'm more than happy to accept that.
We also have, as I understand, over the years, there's been a lot of discussion about putting gates at the entrances. That's an expense, it's a maintenance, but it also could potentially block out safety vehicles, ambulances.
No. It has to have a provision in the code or whatever you use for.
So that's something we could look at, but we could also even just put up signs out there that say, these are privately maintained roads, no public access allowed.
Except when the road is blocked and they have to come through here to get.
Yeah, that doesn't work if the road, the old Bainbridge is blocked.
But it could,
Otherwise, nobody comes through here.
it would help the people who might otherwise decide to cut through. But, I mean, there's options, what I'm saying. There are many other options. Everybody has great ideas. It is y'all's neighborhood. What Candy is saying is what we've been trying for the last several years. Please, come to the meetings and get involved. We're up here volunteering our time, trying to figure out how to run this the best way we can. And it's really hard, as many of you know who've served on the board before, it's really hard when you try to do something and everybody starts yelling at you about it. Yeah, it's your neighborhood. Come get involved and help it become what you want it to be. We're not paid managers. Your dues don't pay us to do this for you. We're volunteering to do it because we want to see our neighborhood proliferate.
And it's
grow,
hard
okay?
when you're anonymous, because, I mean, that's fine, but, typically, if you're trying to play on the same level as we are, you shouldn't be ashamed to give us your name. I mean, we want to address your issue, and it's much better if we know who we're dealing with, but sometimes when you get an anonymous letter like that, and then it says, we've discussed this with 2 local attorneys, so we don't know who this person is, and are they even current? Are they of good standing? We don't know. And then they won't even give us the name of these attorneys. We have no problem telling you, this is the name of our attorney. And he represents the board, but who do we represent? You,
Jeremy,
okay?
what are you saying?
Yeah.
When us board, when we ask you an opinion, and you give us our opinion, would there be any stipulation in there that we can't pass your opinion on to the rest of the neighborhood?
You as a board, you can make a decision to release my opinions out to the association by a board vote. Some things you may or may not want to. It all depends. Engaged in several construction defect litigation cases, and the stuff there, you don't want to give my advice out because it's strategy of our multi-million-dollar case. But there are things that I give interpretations of documents. So one would be, I just talked about the quorum requirements. So I told you what my opinion is, and I let everybody know because I think that's something that's very important. So if you want to release something, just say, hey, is this something that we should release? And oftentimes they'll say yes.
Okay, so in other words, it wouldn't be your policy.
No, you the board decide what gets released.
Okay, good.
Good question.
Mr. Cook?
Mr. Anderson, would you look at Article 3, general provisions?
Yes.
In the covenants, and tell me whether or not the first section is still applicable?
The 50-year provision
Yes.
that you have, yes.
Yeah, that's the section, but that's not the question I have. I'm asking about the whole section 1.
The whole section 1.
In
Yes.
particular, I'm asking whether or not any changes to the covenants would not take effect until 3 years hence.
Okay, so that's exactly what I was talking about is, at this point, because I just got hired with the association, what I want to do is allow the vote to occur tonight and then give the board advice, because if you really parse this sentence out, the section 1, all the way through it, and you had different opinions from your prior attorney, the first part of the sentence almost reads that there is a prohibition on any sort of amendments within the first 50 years, and then after the first 50 years, then it gives you a way that you amend the documents. Poorly written provision, and provisions are written to be, or interpreted by the courts to be the least restrictive, so I need to give the board advice based upon the multiple possible interpretations, and also the fact that you were revived, and there's new statutes that talk about how to amend restrictions when there isn't a provision to amend restrictions. So is that first 50-year prohibition, if that's an outright prohibition, does the statute, because you just got revived, control, which says it's only a 30 or 60%, excuse me, a 2/3 amendment provision for any amendments without a 3-year delay, without a 90 days. So very complicated. So what I suggest for everybody tonight is do the vote. It's not getting recorded. I'll give the board advice after I do some additional research, and then the board can make the decision, if it passes, how to proceed forward.
Well, the reason I ask that question is because the guidelines that they have adopted as a board has changes in the covenants and restrictions built into their language.
You talk about the architectural guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, so I haven't reviewed those. We'll take a look at those, and if they need to be tweaked because they make changes, then we'll do that appropriately.
Because, for example, the only reference to a detached building is a guest house.
Okay?
Nothing else in the covenants and restrictions speaks to other buildings.
Okay.
And the prior interpretation was that anything built had to be attached to the house.
Okay.
That's been challenged apparently as well, but I find no language in here that allows them to do what they're trying to do.
So what we need to do is take a look at them, make sure that if we've adopted a rule. One thing that for rules, they have to be within your scope of authority, they have to be reasonable, and they can't be a violation of law or public policy. So we just need to, and they have to be consistent with your declaration. So I'll review them for consistency with the declaration, and if we need to make some modifications, we certainly will.
Thank you.
I'm asking John, did he
Yes.
give you a copy
Yes,
of
I
that?
did.
Okay.
And Mr.
But
Cook,
I
what I
haven't
would say
reviewed
is, we went forward with those changes based on advice of our prior attorney as well, who said we did have the authority to do it. So we're trying to do the best we can for the majority of the neighbors. Of course, we're not going to make everybody happy, but we're trying to take input from everybody, assemble the majority feeling best we can, massage the language to make as many people happy as possible, and then, you know, the Florida statutes really did try to address the same issue bringing up, saying that's just too restrictive, too onerous, here's what it should be. That's actually one of the articles that the prior attorney said, well, when you submit it for refreshment, strike that out, because that's in direct conflict with Chapter 720. DEO cautioned us against making those types of changes, because it'd make his job harder to review and approve the revitalization. So we didn't make the change, But we've got to continue to address it and make sure that when we revive these things, or, I'm sorry, revise to get current, we're gonna make sure we're current with the Florida statutes. And by all means, you have experience with this. Come to the meetings and come help us do this the best way for everybody.
I'm not criticizing the guidelines per se, because I think we've had a need for guidelines to the ACC for years.
Yes,
There's
agreed.
never word developed.
Right.
But I'm questioning, you're making changes in the covenants and restrictions within your guidelines, which I don't think is permissible.
That was not anywhere near the intention of doing so. What the guidelines were doing were filling in where the covenants restrictions were silent. And by at least 6 different attorneys that we've talked to, and I've talked to over the years, the detached structures are defined as property improvements. And they're not prohibited. There's nothing that says anything must be attached to the house. It's just not there. And I believe that. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've asked many different attorneys to review, and they said, no, there's no prohibition against things. There's nothing that says if you want a shed, it has to be attached to the house. In fact, it clearly says you can have a detached guest house.
That's the
You know,
only reference to a detached.
But, well, these things weren't written the best way possible either.
I agree.
And
They were written by lawyers.
No
offense to you.
I try to do a better job. That's one of the things that I do. So I've probably in the area of Tallahassee, and I know when I was in Sarasota, I was doing more document rewrites than anybody else. So I'm kind of a document dork. So I take what's working, similarly situated communities, what things are they doing based upon the size of your homes, the size of your lots, tree coverage, what do you see your community as, and try to get these things and make it how you really want it to read as a community, and get all of your input and make you a great set of documents that you can have going forward. Are you all of you agree? No. There's probably some people who are going to say, I don't want this, or I want that. No, not 100% of everybody's going to agree, but if we can get the 2/3 amount to agree, then we have some progress and move forward, and hopefully get a good set of documents in the future. Yes, sir. All right.
Anybody else have questions
Yeah,
or?
about the audit, you sent out $10,000 audit, $40,000
No, 10,000 was the highest bid we got.
to audit a $40,000 business?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have any CPAs in here?
Unfortunately, a lot of the attorneys up here, you have a lot of CPAs that just really don't understand association business and how to competently and effectively do audits. So they overprice them, and they don't really. We're not that complex.
I think my point is that no way could it possibly be 10,000.
Yeah, I don't know about that specific number, but I've seen some pretty high ones. And
I'm talking about the amount of money we're dealing with here for an audit.
But we had it done for 500.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The person probably didn't want to do it. That's why they probably said 10,000.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said the person probably didn't want to do it. That's why they said 10,000. But I don't want to do a project. I bid it up real high too.
I have an audit every year. Okay, and $500 is, out of the budget, it's nothing. I mean, that's very important rather than waiting 2 years. And I think the 10,000 kind of made everybody go, oh, yeah, we skip. And, one of my concerns is, as an owner out here, is I appreciate the board trying to save money. But, how long ago were you president?
2 years. Oh, how long?
Yeah.
10 years.
He was president 10 years ago, and he got a professional asphalt company to come out here. You remember? And at that time, he came back and they said 5 years tops, our rules. So now you're telling me 5 years, you just did it, and now you're saying we got 5 years. Well, in front of my house, it looked like a spider web. it's all cracked and everything like that. You have the power to come up, you know, talking about the road fund. You could vote tonight to assess everybody over the next, you said 120,000 divided by 91, whatever that comes up to, split it out over 2 years. In 2 years, you got your brand new roads.
That's a possibility.
Well, I'm saying,
That was
this
not-
is how I feel, you know. I'm trying to sell a house out here, and it would look a lot better with brand new roads. So,
Agreed.
here's my complaint. Don't try to save me $500 and make me wait 5 years, and the entrances save me whatever, you know. There's people out here with houses, $375,000, you know.
Well, the three people that I contacted, they said the road needs to be paved down.
Yeah, I know the road needs to be paved now. And
I told him we didn't have the money to do it.
And what I was ticked off about is, I went and got a bid,
Yeah,
and I gave it to whoever was in charge.
I got
of
it,
that.
yeah.
All right, it was $160,000.
It was
That
173.
Pardon me?
It was 173,000 I have it.
Okay, 173.
When was that?
In
Two and a half years
2017.
ago?
Yeah, yeah.
2017.
We got the bid,
Okay.
but the thing is, it's just like an audit, $500 compared to $10,000. That was the same thing with the roads. Because one guy said it cost $250,000. That was without doing the skirts, you know, the sides. And another guy said 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. So there's a lot of different variables.
Well, mine had the sides too.
Well, I know, but there's a lot of different variables in there that could cost you $250,000 or it could cost you $600,000. It's like I talked to the county. The county wanted $900,000. The city wanted $1.3 million because there had to be sidewalks, there had to be curbs, there had to be, you know, hidden
The
drains.
city's not an option because we're not in the city limits.
Yeah,
Well,
but I mean that's you know,
Yeah, so-
we went by your quote, 173, and we kind of worked from that.
But the bids we looked at were also raising all of the drainage rates
well,
up to.
that, mine did too.
Yeah,
Mine did rain to drain.
but this is only projected 300,000.
Well, I don't know, my feeling is, you know,
The longer
what do
you
we
wait-
up? What do we need? How many people do we have? Divide it by
Yeah,
them,
so-
and that's what you gotta
So
come
the
up with.
question I have for you and everybody else here, and we've talked about this a lot. And if we have, right now, 10 or 12 people who find it difficult to pay $400 a year, how are we gonna collect a couple $1,000s from them in a single assessment?
Well, I find it hard to believe somebody's out here in a $250,000 house or $350,000 house, and they can't afford $400 a year.
We have.
I
this-
just find that hard to believe. and
We
that's
don't
not my-
understand that
And that's
either.
not my problem. I
I
have
do
to
too.
take care of my problem.
Well, but it's everybody's problem,
Right.
because we didn't have, I mean, prior boards didn't do it to collect that money. That came, we inherited this, okay? So it's been there, but push comes to shove, even if the prior board had tried to do it, the covenants were expired by MARTA, and they probably would have got shot down in court if we really tried. We've got them back in our hands, and we have a plan going forward where we will be able to collect that from them. And if we do an assessment, then if we get to a point where we have to do an assessment and people don't pay, that falls under the same unpaid assessments. We lien them all, we foreclose, so what, we're gonna run everybody out of the neighborhood because they can't pay the
I think you're
assessment?
making, you know, I'm
Well-
pretty sure I'm gonna pay. Are you saying everybody's not gonna pay?
No.
Well, then-
I'm sure some of them are, but I think it's gonna be very difficult on a lot of our retirees on a fixed budget to come up with a special assessment. It's better to plan and do it a little bit at a time if we can, and make a plan to get there as fast as we can, which is what we're trying to do.
I
John,
just
John,
think
I would
that
suggest
5
you get
years
some
is too
understanding
long.
from the city about the water line.
My opinion from hearing him, okay, is that maybe we need to think a little different, okay? Collectively, if he has ideas, and Mr. Cook and the gentleman that has no name tag, I don't know you. So, let's think differently. But of course, it has to be 2/3 of the vote.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Exactly.
maybe we need to address, like he said, he doesn't wanna wait 5 years. My neighbor, the Liverts, they've been here over 20 years. She said, oh my God, ever since I moved here, all we talk about is the road. So I get what she's saying. I'm not saying it's against you, John, or you, Candy. I just think that you're really, from the 8 years I've been here, I've seen more improvement and progress in the committee getting things done than in the past, right? So let's start maybe thinking a shorter term, because I too agree that if you live in Huntington Estates, $400 is nothing. If you live in this area, that they don't wanna pay, that's different. I don't wanna pay my homeowner's tax to the city, but I pay it.
The other problem you have with the roads that hasn't been discussed is you've got a lot of liability out there with all of those drains sunk. You're gonna get sued. Now you're gonna, if you get vote for motorcycles, the kid ain't paying attention, gonna go into that, you know, the little cone isn't gonna hold you harmless. And that's a big concern. Bicycles and all that, so.
But, you know, that still could happen. I mean, the people who live here know about those drains. They're gonna watch out for them. So you're talking about somebody that's gonna decide to cut through, and they're gonna do that right now anyway if they want to. So liability's always been there. The same liability's been there. Yes, sir.
What is the shortfall we are on the road fund right now?
120.
Depending on what bid, we're choosing the middle road bid, 300,000. We are right now $120,000 short.
Mr. President, I might have a, potential thing that you may not have ever considered. There are actually companies banks that specialize in loaning to associations. So today you have we can't change what's being voted on today, because it was sent out specifically. But if it's something that the members and the board would like to consider, there is a manner where we can take out a loan, and those people that wanted to pay it up, you know, if we get approval by the owners, we have to actually get the approval to impose that assessment. But if we meet the threshold to impose the assessment, we could actually take out a loan. Those people that wanted to pay it up front can pay it up front, no interest. But then the loan that's taken out will be those people that are secured by a lien. They can pay over time, and they're paying the interest that we would be paying on the loan. So it wouldn't be any money out of your pockets if you paid up front. Those people that needed more time could pay it over time. That could potentially speed up your.
What does that bank use for collateral?
You guys are the best. So this is why a lot of banks don't realize, and a lot of the banks that do this are out of South Florida, but one of them just merged with Centennial. And what they use is the collateral is your assessments. You're the best sort of business entity. The best thing to lend to is you can't leave, and you have a base that has a statutory and a document obligation to pay assessments. And if they don't pay assessments, you can lien them. So because you are one of the best people to loan to, and you never default. Because if you can't come up with the money, you just go out and levy another assessment. Yes.
Since we own our roads, though, do you need every single homeowner to, no?
No. So what we need to do is, you have a threshold that you can approve, that's in your documents, that says how much you can increase. If you go over a certain amount, to increase it, you have to get a vote of the owners. We put it out to a vote of the owners that say, if you want to do the roads early, here's how much it's going to cost, here's the vote we got to get, here's our financing mechanism. You'll have two ways to do it. You can pay up front, or you can pay as part of the loan, and we can do it all as a single vote. And by the end of the meeting, we'd know, okay, how much is the loan going to be? We have the authorization to assess everybody at that time. Then we go to the bank and say, okay, we'll be talking to them in the meantime, but go to the bank and say, okay, now we have our collateral, which is the owners approved to be levied this amount. Here's our collateral, give us the loan, and then we take out the loan and do the work.
The owners have to vote to approve.
They have to vote to
go
approve.
into a loan, pay the interest.
Well,
So they have to agree to do this.
yeah, they'd have to approve
So
the
it's the same
assessment.
process as raising the due.
Just what you did now, but it would be for a much higher amount, but we would provide the option to either pay early or pay over time.
Are you saying that the board doesn't have the authority to, or if that bridge went out tomorrow morning, and they had a meeting, and they got a price to
No.
do an assessment for $30,000?
Okay.
They don't have that
So they
authority?
can go out and use their, use the funds that they have on
No,
hand.
I'm saying they don't have the money.
Oh, they don't have the money. So that's where your documents are potentially in conflict with the statute, because the statute just says the associations can levy assessments for the maintenance obligations to run your association.
Right.
You have this thing that says, yes, the board can do it, but if you go over a certain percent, you have to go out and get the owner vote.
Do you know what that percent is?
So I don't have all your documents memorized yet, but I will one day. What is the threshold here? It is 2/3 vote of those voting in person or by proxy.
No, I'm talking about the board's authority to levy an assessment.
Okay, so
The board, just the board.
The board, in that same provision, can set your assessments, but if they want to impose a special assessment to raise those funds, you have a limitation on your documents that says we need to go out and try to get 2/3 vote. If we couldn't go out and get the 2/3 vote, but there was an emergency like you're saying, and the owners just refused to do it, then at that point my advice is we've tried to best comply with our documents, but our obligation under the statutes and under the documents is to maintain that area in a safe condition. Board levy the assessment, and we'll see those owners that don't pay in court, and a judge would be in our favor that the statute trumps. But we always want to try to get that threshold first.
There's a difference between the bridge falling in and a pothole.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if there's an emergency, we would still try to go out and get the vote first.
Before my head spins, is the answer to my question yes?
Depends.
He's, by the way, you know, you all have your CNRs, so it's Article 33, Section 4.
Yeah, you got a whole bunch of antiquated stuff in there that just create a lot of impediments for you. We're going to try our best to try to, you know, to adhere to all those, because, but you also may have some conflicting statutes, but we still want to make sure we, you know, if we can achieve the vote first, let's try it, because we don't want to get ourselves in any legal mess. But if we really had to raise those funds and the owners just kept voting it down, but it was something that was needed, then I think the statute would apply.
In my personal opinion, it's going to be harder to get 2/3 of the people to vote to go into debt or to have a special assessment of several $1,000s. When it doesn't look like.
My position is that you don't have to.
So
Like he just said, either way.
well,
You could do an assessment without 2/3 of, without us voting.
That doesn't mean people are going to pay it though.
Well, I
So then
don't know, I think most of the people pay their bills that are in this room.
Most of the people here are paying their dues, but based on preliminary count, our request to raise the dues $75 a year did not pass. Okay? So now we've got to go back and decide how we're going to reach the goal that we were trying to reach in the limited time we're trying to reach it in. Which
So you
is
didn't get 2/3 of votes, it's just to raise $75?
correct.
Right, like right now?
Right now.
Oh, my God.
Right now.
Well, a lot of people
Wow.
So that makes it harder. We have to go back and look for more creative
That answers
options.
your question, Mike.
We have to either take longer to pave the roads, or we have to come up with an assessment, or we have to figure out what to do.
No, that's where we disagree, when you're saying that 2/3 and all that. I mean, all 25 years on the board, nobody ever said that you couldn't do an assessment. That's your fiduciary responsibility, is to handle the money. And if you don't have the money, is to get the money. And, you know, 4% on $100 and something thousand, and you're talking 5 years down the road, those figures just aren't gonna add up, you know?
Well, the board meeting that we had in April, I think it was, we voted then to come up with an assessment. Everybody would rather spread that money over a period of 4 to 5 years.
Or like, you can do it you can do it in 2 years, or you could go, like he said,
I
you
understand.
want to pay
Maybe it was
6%
special
interest,
assessment.
and you
Pay
can
all that
start the
money.
roads tomorrow.
Mr. Anderson's got.
okay, so your scenario was a special assessment because it was you know, something that needed to be done right away. That's a 2/3 vote of majority, 2/3 vote of those voting in person by proxy. But I think what we're doing is a change in the basis and maximum of the annual assessments. So it's only a majority voting in person or by proxy. So how many votes were cast total? You know?
We got 41
Hold on,
ballots.
you interrupted me before and it screwed me all up. 1 second.
So we just have to have a majority of those voting in person or by proxy to be able to assess this. So hopefully that lower threshold, because what's been proposed is a change to your annual assessment, not a special assessment.
What do we ask?
Out of all those that cast their votes, what is the total for and what's the total against?
You're just talking about the assessment.
The assessment.
Yes, the
Just
increase,
using-
the increase.
I'm seeing what the dues increase. 3, no, 24, yes, 17.
All right, we didn't get it.
We didn't get it.
For the record, I voted yes, so I'm going to put mine out there.
But if you do want to entertain that loan idea, so the way you pitch it is not that, because you still could do it for that same 5-year payback period, but those that wanted to pay it early just would be able to do that 5-year period without any
The
assessment.
longer we wait to come up with extra money, the longer it's going to take us to get what we need to pay for the roads.
I mean, I personally like voting to add it as part of the dues, you know what I'm saying?
And
Now,
that our impression
I'm not
was
like Mike, I'm not
people
getting ready
wanted-
to try to sell my house because I want to do the road, so I'm gonna be here a while, so I don't mind doing it over a 5-year period. I just caught the fact, he said he's trying to sell his house, so maybe, yeah, he's got an interest to do it right now, but I prefer to spread it out, you know, and then pay it, you know, counting that.
Out of
you know,
the
like-
people who came to the meetings and gave us their opinion,
Yeah.
and have talked to us by phone, by in the yards and walking down the streets, the majority of those are saying, the assessment's not a great idea, we'd rather pay a little bit at a time. Well, that didn't bear out tonight, because they didn't vote that way. But what I've heard, and again, that's the people who have come to our meetings and have talked to us. Y'all have to get involved. It's your neighborhood. These are your roads. They're not our roads. It's not us trying to, we got to have more of your money to take care of your roads. It's, no, you guys have to come up with more money to take care of your roads. You got us up here as volunteers trying to make it all happen, but we can't do it alone. It takes the whole neighborhood.
John, can we only vote on this annually, or can we re-vote?
No, we can
Just send that
call
back
a
out.
special.
Now we're better informed.
We
maybe
can call a
get it.
special meeting, means we have to pay for the meeting hall, we have to send out notices by mail, it's printing costs, it's postage costs, we have to do it all again, and we can, and I think we will have to, either for a request to raise the dues again, a request for a special assessment, a request for a loan. Yeah, we're gonna look at the options now, since it go. We're gonna have to do something.
I would like Mr. Anderson's opinion here, because we have a dilemma, and in that everybody has a right to vote yes or no to the assessment. But I'm just curious, if we don't get those dues, how do the members propose we take care of our roads?
Well,
Can you
that's
help
the
us
problem.
with that?
That's what I was saying. The statute contemplates that the association shall be able to assess and collect from its members for the maintenance. Now, in the emergency scenario, we had we still try to get the vote, and if we don't get it, we now have a peril, the bridge is out, people are going to hurt themselves. At this point, I don't know, I haven't driven the roadways, or I haven't, if somebody says, yes, this is, tremendously dangerous, maybe then we can take the opinion that we can just override and not have to get the approval. But but that's a fact-based scenario, and probably what I would do, since we're not at that, because somebody's given an opinion that we have 5 more years left.
We don't
Try-
have 5 years, maybe, that was
was
a
a
year
year
and a half ago,
Okay.
so we might have
So-
4 years maybe, but.
Yeah.
Before we go down the path of assessing people where I have to lean them, we want to make sure that we give it another, at least 1 or 2 more good tries to get the funding. And if we can't, and we repeatedly get voted down, then your board, whatever board is here, is going to have a tough decision to make, proceed forward without getting the vote. And if somebody wants to challenge it, then it's going to be, does the statute comply because we have a maintenance obligation, or is your restriction that was adopted by the developer for the purpose of keeping assessments low so they can sell the places, which one trumps? So, and I think under certain circumstances, the statute would apply, but we gotta get those facts, and we don't have them yet.
Well, the other thing too is Michael, don't forget about Michael, he created a lot of problems in this neighborhood because of all the tonnage that went in and out of these roads. So that hasn't been discovered yet.
Yeah.
It's
We don't
kind
know
of
if there's
tell,
any
but
hidden damage that's gonna
It's
pop
probably
up.
gonna be less than 3 years before we're going to do something to the roads.
Okay, so the important thing for everybody to take away from this meeting is, we have an issue, needs to be addressed. It's gonna cost everybody some more money, one way or another, because we don't have the money already in savings to take care of it. We can look at more options and see. Yes, ma'am?
No, I was gonna say, instead of mailing everything out all over again, you have a board meeting coming up in January, right?
Yes.
Why don't you discuss it rather than have a special meeting?
We could try to do it that way. We can notice that special meeting. If there's gonna be any vote taken, we still have to do the advance notice by mail according to our governing documents as they are now. Now, thank you for bringing that up. We asked last year for everybody to volunteer to accept board business by email to save these mailing costs. And we got maybe 30% of the people, 36 people.
It's quicker.
So, if y'all want to save yourselves some money for printing and postage, agree to let us transact business by email, and then we could save quite a bit of money down the road. So we need a sign-up sheet here. If you agree to do it, I agree to accept board business by email. Here's my email address. We'd like to get that before you leave.
Good.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a recommendation, sure, that we have all this confusion going on, that the lawyer will be present at every meeting.
Like that guy.
And I'll tell you that the reason that I learned when I was on the board is a lot of time is wasted. That's the man that has the answer.
Yeah.
He's the guy that does it for a living. And I don't know what he would charge for a meeting, but to me, that's well worth it.
And
Because
that's
we got
something.
too many wannabe lawyers
Sure.
and not enough lawyers.
Will you work for food?
No. Okay, so here's my answer. We will take that into consideration. My feeling is, he costs us money. He's here. If we go back and forth, ask all these questions, we're keeping him here a lot longer. If y'all come to the meeting, you say, this is what we need to know, we can write down those questions. I can email them to him, and he can get an answer right back to us and
Well,
charge
let's
us.
ask, what do you charge an hour to come to
$225.
a meeting?
$225.
$225 an hour?
Yes, sir.
So that's 500 times 4 meetings,
Yeah.
basically?
So and
I've
we
never seen our meeting get done, 2
Our-
hours yet.
our board.
I think the more you have them, like the first 3 meetings, he's gonna clear up a lot of the stuff, and then you will get to the point you don't need them, but right now.
Sure.
I suggest he be at your next 3
That's a
meetings.
good suggestion that we will certainly take into consideration and see. But just remember, anything like that we do takes money out of the road fund. Well, it takes money that could go into the road fund. Okay? It keeps it from getting there. So it's not, okay, it does not take money out of the road fund, just put it in, we don't take it out. It's only coming out to pay for the roads. But anything we spend doesn't get to the road fund.
I know you've heard that expression, danged if you do and danged if you don't.
Right.
So, I mean,
By
we're certainly open-minded. but-
By not spending those extra things that, well, it sounds like it'd be a good idea. And we've tried to cut them back everywhere we can, and that has allowed us to put in $20,000 in the road fund this year. We're required by board vote to put $11,700. So we freed up enough money, and we've got a proposed budget, or we had one, we're gonna have to look at it again. We're not gonna get there now. If we had the dues increase, we'd be putting $20,000 every year into the road fund. And that's gonna be the majority of what we need to get to our goal. We're gonna have to redo that. So now, we won't be putting 20,000, we'll be putting maybe 14.
Are we allowed to take donations? I mean, being nonprofit, so how does that work if we,
Somebody wanted to donate money, or you did, I have several
Fundraisers.
associations, they have different things where, you know, like for Christmas,
We will
Christmas
discuss
party,
that.
they charge $20 donation, and then they keep all the extra money, that you can do that.
We are running long. He is costing us money. We promised him we'd only keep him here an hour. It's been an hour and a half now, roughly.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any specific questions for Jeremy? I have a couple questions for him as a quick follow-up before he leaves to make sure that we finish this meeting as we need to. Gather the votes we have. I think we've got enough here. We had votes for new members. We can finish that out. We can talk about, maybe you should stay a little bit longer to hear about this stuff.
We had one that they voted for everybody and it was too many, so that got disqualified.
That's disqualified, yes.
That's disqualified. Okay. But we still had 41 ballots.
They are all great candidates, I have to
We
say.
had
Thank you,
a
each and
envelope
every.
that they signed in,
person.
and then when we opened it up, there was nothing in it.
Okay, so somebody sent us an empty envelope.
And then somebody voted for everybody. Everything else was fine. And no, that's the result. The circle people are the ones.
You would please stand up and tell us the results. What did you find?
The new
So
board
we had
members.
46 ballots, 45 that we could count. One of them disqualified because they voted for everybody.
Right. There was one that was sent in with nothing.
So 45, and basically we counted 44. And out of those 44, what are
Some
you-
people didn't vote for all six
That's okay.
positions,
That's
so,
okay.
I mean, do you want the number of votes or just who was
Let's
elected?
just,
Number.
y'all want numbers?
Okay.
Then give
I
numbers.
want the numbers.
So, we have Judy Dawkins with 32 votes, and she was tied with Liliana Lindsay with 32 votes. And then the next is John Kellerman with 30 votes, and Edson Manners with 30 votes. And then we have Terry Mayer with 29, and John Holton with 28.
So is that, how many did we need? Was that six?
We need six.
We need 6. Judy Dawkins, John Holton, John Kellerman, Liliana Lindsay, Terry Mayer, and Edson Manners.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, great.
So those are the people who will be joining Candy.
And I don't know if you announced the other votes.
No, we will. Okay, so we have board members starting January. Welcome. As soon as they're done, we'll go ahead and talk about the other 2 votes to see where we're at.
I'm missing one.
We've already said that the dues increase did not pass.
The dues increase did not pass. The,
30, that was 24 to 17.
so we were one off on one of these, but it wasn't gonna make a difference, so we didn't do a recount. I had 18 to 23 and Marisol had 17 to 24, but it didn't make it, so we didn't do a recount.
Okay, so the dues increase did not pass.
The first one to, for the audit, to, not require a,
CPA.
CPA in the audit. 30 were for that, they voted for it, and 11 voted against it. So that passed. And the second one for the motorcycles, 25 were for it and 16 were against it. So both of those passed.
So, Mr. Attorney, you heard the results. We will discuss options. Now, I do want to say something about the audit. We raised that here, Mr. Fleury.
It was 2/3 of all the owners, so the motorcycle did not pass.
Oh,
No.
That-
I get confused on what's 2/3 and
Well,
what's.
so there's all different thresholds, so
okay.
so there's, if it just says, say, 2/3 or a majority of all voting interest, that means of everybody. That means your entire community of 91. If the documents, the articles, the bylaws, or the declaration, or even the state law say a number approved by a percentage or a number, voting in person or by proxy, then you look at who actually participated to make that determination. So if it says a majority in person or by proxy, and you had 40 people vote, to get a majority, you have to have 21 in favor. If you had 40 people that, or excuse me, 40 people, excuse me, if you had a majority of those voting in person by proxy and there was 40 people, you had to have 21 for it to pass. But if it said a majority of all voting interests, you actually have to have a majority of 91, which is terrible.
Out of that 91,
46.
out of that 91, there are 12 who are not current in their dues and they're not
11.
eligible to vote.
11.
So-
Did we actually have a board meeting to suspend them prior to this vote?
So those 11
No,
wouldn't count. They would
Well,
all-
we discussed that, Ms. Barbara, and because of the last time we asked for dues, and for the many years that they have not paid, our covenants have not been in effect. So it's hard to say they're not in good standing for not paying the dues, because they didn't actually have a legally binding document that they had to.
So,
Next year, we'll be able to throw those out if they don't pay. This year, we erred on the side of caution. and
you're
did not.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying for 15 years, the covenants and restrictions were not in existence?
They were expired by Florida law. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow, and they didn't have to, okay.
Yep.
And you agree with that, right?
Yeah, so that's just, there was, for whatever reason, a whole bunch of attorneys in town that kind of think they know what they're doing, didn't realize this, because they dabble in, have a few associations, and didn't understand this law and the implications of it's called, when I say MARTA, it's the Marketable Records Title Act, didn't realize that where it says 50 years, there's two different thresholds. Your document, what it says, and the 30-year MARTA, and they didn't know that. So your attorney was sending out violation notices, sending demands for collections without real authority to do so. So, but you're fixed now. So we'll hopefully, we'll never have that problem
So how
again.
long we been in good standings now? Just
Since July.
since July? Oh, okay. So really, we can only go forward for 2020.
Correct.
But again, it's not on a
No, that
community-wide,
doesn't mean
I have to look at every single, all of your deeds and your title. So some of you may actually be, may have been subject the entire time because of your title history, while some of you may not have been. And it's the only reason why we don't do it for everybody, because it's time consuming, but when they turn over the ledgers of all the delinquent people, we're gonna then be able to sit down and do them all at once and say, okay, we can pursue this person because we can lien them or not.
So none of those passed then, basically, because it need all.
No, the bylaws passed because that's a majority of those voting in person or by proxy. So the audit, I believe, did you say it?
30.
30 to 17 or 30 to 11, that one passed.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what I was going to say about that audit, to hopefully calm some fears about oversight, we're not saying we're not going to get rid of oversight, the audit committee. The only thing we're taking out is the requirement to pay a CPA to do the job. And that's because the Florida statutes say if you earn less than $150,000 a year, you're not required to do that. So that was a step going forward to save the association more money, because the statute says we don't have to spend that money. Our old document suggested it. It's not a bad suggestion, but it's a costly suggestion. And we don't have enough assets to really worry about. And we're still going to have an audit committee, not a CPA, but an audit committee, review our books, make sure we're doing things on the up and up, and provide a report to you every year, like we're required by our bylaws to do. And Nick is here to do that for us
I have a
whenever
really-
we get there.
I have a really quick question for
Sure.
the attorney though, because we had a brand new homeowner that was at the October meeting that was very distressed. He's not here this evening, but he was very distressed to learn that we had 12 members that hadn't paid their dues, and that 5 in particular were in critical arrears. And I think we have some of you members here that were at that meeting. And his question is, how is it possible that he's brand new here and that he would be asked to pay more dues to make up for those that didn't pay. And the question was, how is that possible? So we were a new board 2 years ago. How is it possible that prior to our taking over and discovering this, what responsibility does the board have to their members?
Okay. Well, the prior boards would have had, and again, it's, all of you are volunteers, everybody that gets on the board, so if any of you are out there, were on the board at the time that during the deed restrictions that expired, you should have been able to rely upon your council to keep you up to date with changes in the state law and different requirements. And unfortunately, back 15 years ago, or whenever the 30 years, you should have had somebody that told you, here's what you do to preserve so they don't expire going forward, because you're all volunteers. You're not expected to be experts. You're supposed to try to get acquainted with the statutes and know your documents, but again, not know everything. So did they have an obligation to try to seek advice? Yeah, and during the time period, your attorneys that were sending out the violation notices and going to collection, each and every time they sent out the notice, they should have looked and determined, do we have a valid contract? Because that's what this is, that you're sending a demand on. And unfortunately, that attorney didn't do it a number of years ago, was apparently sending out letters. So should that attorney have corrected it back then a number of years ago? Yes, but they were unaware of it as well, because they didn't do what the Florida bar requires, is that you educate yourself and make sure the area you're practicing, you're knowledgeable about the laws. But that owner, bad luck that he bought into a community that for a while was expired, but the problem is, they're back in force. He or she has a legal obligation to pay going forward, and we're going to try our best to get all the past due amounts that we can without spending any funds. So, yeah, there's probably going to be somewhere at the write-off, but going forward, that's not going to happen.
Do the homeowners have a right to know who's not paid?
Yes, so you can ask. I mean, I don't recommend putting a dunning list out and saying their names out, but you as the owners. And this is something that if you're concerned about the audit requirement, you as the owners can request to look at the books anytime you want, monthly if you want. You can look at individual ledgers of everybody that's delinquent. So if you'd like to do that, and you can look at the receipts and all the expenditures and all of those things, so that if you want to track what's going on during the year, you can. But yes, you can look at all the accounts.
Mike, we've been advised by other attorneys that we've been talking with to not go out and make that list, because then they could sue the board for,
But that's not true.
Well, no.
No, to put the notice out there is bad, but you're always,
Yeah, I understand.
you can always come and ask to see the books, and you can find the information. It's just not recommended that we hand out a list.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And most of your business people, I used QuickBooks for 25 years. I gave my CPA a balanced set of books at the end of every year and asked him to charge me for an audit. I just wanted to be clean. I didn't want to have any suspect. And there was never a thing came up in 25 years, because if you do QuickBooks right, you have to do a double entry set of accounting, and you've got to put the receipts in a file under alphabetical, whatever. And Clay is using that system now. And it's virtually foolproof. You've got to really want to cheat to find a way to get through it. So the fact that he's doing that, pretty clean. So that's the reason I voted, quite frankly, to do away with a CPA. Because I think that there are people here responsible enough to do the audit, to see a receipt, and here's the check, and here's a receipt, and here's a check, and you can do 100% of it. We don't have that many bills. Or you can
We really
sample
don't
it,
have
or
that
you
many
can
bills.
sample it. But I'm just saying that I think it's a good decision not to have to pay a CPA.
And that one passed, so we will talk to you about how to, do we have to record that?
Yes.
Why did that one pass in the motorcycle and not?
Because
Because of different thresholds. So in the declaration, you have 2/3 of all the owners, and then in the bylaws, because it's because that's not dealing with a property right. That's dealing with just how your corporate entity, and it's not dealing with something, what you can do, you can and cannot do on your lot or in the common area.
So the
So the
motorcycle-
threshold's lower.
So which is it? Okay.
The
You
bylaws
develop-
are the rules
Yeah,
for
but
the
which was
operation
in
of the
which?
board.
Was one of those in one and one in the other?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So the motorcycle was in your deed restrictions or your declaration. That's kind of like your constitution, and then your audit was in your bylaws, which is your operational document.
So is
That
there
way we
a
can change it.
fine if you have a motorcycle now?
No, that didn't pass.
Meaning,
No, it did, the amendment didn't get approved. Not enough owners voted for it.
so that
So I
means
think-
what?
It's still the same.
You're still restricted.
So your question
Yeah, still-
though,
So is there a-
can you
but
ride
if-
a
Oh, okay.
motorcycle through the
There's a
neighborhood?
gentleman that's on the board that rides a motorcycle to work most every day when the weather's nice.
Okay,
Is he not allowed to have his motorcycle anymore?
okay. Well,
Don't go down that rabbit
yeah,
hole.
I don't want
I'm going
to,
down the rabbit hole.
Don't go down that.
I'm going down the rabbit hole. I want to know.
They're supposed to sign something.
We'll never get a road funds if you go down that rabbit
I'm
hole.
not saying anything, he's bigger than me.
I mean, I wouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
I'm going down the road. I want to know.
want to know. Well, did the person in question have the motorcycle before the deed restrictions were reinstated?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a hard case to, because that person, just like if you built a prohibited fence, that's something that, you know, at this point, potentially have to live with.
Okay?
Grandfather.
And what happens if I go out tomorrow and buy myself a Harley Davidson and I'm going to keep it at my house?
Now, you're subject to the restrictions because you bought it afterwards.
I understand, but what's the penalty if I have it?
Okay, so the penalty, so the enforcement of the restrictions can be various different ways. One, the association can take, for any violation, not just the motorcycle, but say you construct something you're not supposed to, a demand letter from the attorney, you have to go through what's called pre-suit mediation. This is where it gets a little costly for owners, is we have to go to mediation, the owner has to go to mediation, this ends up being a $4,000 endeavor for everybody to agree that, okay, I'm gonna stop doing what I'm doing. And if you don't, then the association can proceed forward in court and get a judge to tell you, remove the shed, don't bring the motorcycle on the property. That's one way, but you could also, the statute allows for the imposition of fines. So if we set up a separate fining committee, not of the board of directors, but you set it up of 3 individuals that have no ties to the directors, not spouses, employees, roommates, those individuals then could be referred a fine of up to $100 a day for a motorcycle, up to a maximum of $1,000. And then that committee could say, yes, are you in violation? If they say yes, then you could get $1,000, up to $1,000 fine for that violation. And then the way you could pursue that would be small claims to collect that. So those are the 2 ways to do it.
Okay. There goes my dream of being a Harley guy. I'm kidding, I'm being facetious. It's not, I don't want to buy a motorcycle.
And my advice, what I just indicated on the grandfathering in, whether it was a board member or not, I wouldn't pursue that case because the condition was existing prior to the institution of the restrictions.
So the 2 motorcycles at Sutton Place are safe then, right?
Excuse me?
So anybody that has a
Motorcycles at
motorcycle
Sutton Place are
before
safe.
July,
So you can't read, so.
Yeah, if you bring one in now, you have
No,
a
no,
problem.
but I'm saying the ones that, I was making a joke. That's-
But if he
Yeah,
trades his
because my
motorcycle
son
in,
live at my
Yeah,
house,
yeah, if
so-
you trade it in or you know, that's not the same
Lives
motorcycle.
at my house, so.
that's not right. That's not right.
That's, yeah, they better run for a long period of time. Just like if you have say you have a prohibited fence, you do a 8-foot fence and it's not permitted, you get to keep that fence until you remove it, or until it becomes substantially damaged where you have to replace most of it. At a point, you lose your grandfathering.
And so basically, you can just go by the point of sale, right? So I mean, if you try to challenge someone, say, hey, I bought this before the statutes were, redone.
Yeah.
or the-
That's one way to do it. If we have a lot of different varying violations throughout the community that we know that were existing, we probably want to document them now while they're fresh and say, okay, this person has a prohibited fence, this person had a, whatever the violation is, document it, and let's get it so we know. So 5 years from now, we're not saying, well, whose prohibited fence, is this one that was existing when they were expired versus one that's newly installed? Because as boards change, documents get lost, people forget. So if you document things that are grandfathered now while it's fresh, well, save me, make it easier for me to enforce later. You look like you're thinking.
Well, because I was wondering what's a prohibited fence, though, I mean.
Well, I was just using that
No, that was an
example.
example.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, no
So,
problem.
yeah, sorry, yeah, I was just using that
I know there's
example.
certain
So I have some
houses don't
communities
have
that
a
say
fence.
specific types of fences
Oh,
need a
okay.
certain height,
Okay.
and they
Okay,
either,
okay.
so that was just an example, not specific to your documents.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions for Jeremy before we let him go home to his family? All right, we will discuss.
All right, thank you very much.
Make sure we
Thank you.
handle everything properly.
Usually I get booed, you know, when I leave.
What's your last name,
Your
Jeremy?
Excuse me?
What's your last name?
Anderson?
Anderson? Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Can we interest you in taking some
Yeah, I'm gonna steal some,
dessert,
yes.
some, and take some of those little mice?
We'll go.
You've got kids, right?
Yes.
They'll love them.
Yeah, they will.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves us to we have some committee reports, which is not a whole lot to report on at this point. Do you have anything you want to report as a secretary for this year?
No, I'm just grateful for the communication. I hope we can keep the lines of communication open. I am the secretary. I have been the chair for the Public Relations Committee. I take my position seriously. So if you have any concern, what? Are you laughing at me?
No, I'm agreeing with you. You take your position
Yeah,
very
I take
seriously.
my position seriously. So if you
We're
have
very lucky
something
to have
of
you.
concern, I get to the rest of the board members.
Yes.
And I may not be the first one to get back with you, but there's 9 of us on the board, and somebody will get back with you. And we do try to give you a variety of, might be a couple of us. And I wanted to say really quick, the loose dogs, okay, that generated more responses from homeowners, so I'm finding out how important everybody's pets really are. So if you have a cat that does not have a collar, but it gets out now and again, please give me a description of the cat. Let me know if it's fixed or not. I want to know that it's fixed, and I want to know that it's vaccinated.
I think there's a lot of cats, Miss Candy.
There is, and there's the
But-
problem that we have.
Yeah, I know.
But some people's cats
But
do
those
get
two
out.
big dogs that ran through my
Yeah.
yard, that even scared me, and I'm not scared of dogs. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, those are some big dogs, and so that's what scared me.
And again, I know a lot of those homeowners, so I know that people's pets get out, and I have a fenced-in area, so if I get a hold of those dogs, they go in my fenced-in area, and I'm able to locate. But not everybody can do that. And I'll tell you what, if the behavior is questionable, I ain't going there. And
Call animal
nobody
control.
should call animal control.
What about if we kind of track them and then call animal control? I have a problem with these cats coming.
You're doing that at your own risk, but yes.
Right.
Yeah, good luck.
You're probably better
Yeah.
off letting
And I
animal
would be
control
happy
do
to
it.
set a trap and get
Yeah.
them in there and
Yeah.
then call animal control.
And
Animal-
Humane Society will give you a trap to
Animal
catch a
control
feral,
can give
and
you- bring you a
animal
trap, I
control
think.
can as
Or
well.
put a
Yeah.
collar with a bell on the
Right.
cat so the birds
Yeah.
can be warned.
Sure.
Yeah, but do not. So we had a homeowner that did that. She had a feral cat that had a litter inside her garage. And they were so cute, right? Until they started urinating and everything inside her garage. And she came to me and I said, you need to call animal control and close down your garage door. Don't leave it open anymore. Animal control came out and they put 2 cages out there, and it caught the mama cat. And it bothered her to hear the cat cry, so she let the cat go. And the guy came to get the cage, and he could tell that it had been messed with. She was not home, and he came over to me and explained the situation, and I said, well, I don't know what happened. But anyways, I confronted the neighbor later, and she admitted. So guess what? If you do that, they will never come back to your yard again. So if you're gonna do it, have a strong heart. Do not mess with the cage. Let animal control handle it.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
That's it.
Okay, that's it for you. No outstanding maintenance issues right now. If you guys know of anything, make sure you report them. Yes, sir?
The E's still off on the sign.
The what?
The E on the sign.
On which side?
It's six.
It's still off. It's up, popped
Oh.
up on top.
I was not aware.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Or the S, what other letters?
I think the city find it.
It's on, I thought it's just somebody set it up on top.
One of the brass letters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yes, yes, thank you.
I thought it was sitting up there because somebody was waiting to reattach it. I had somebody found it.
I hadn't even noticed it was.
I think I see it sitting up.
Well, I hope it's there, because those are pretty costly.
Okay. Anything else you know about? Okay, so for the Architectural Control Committee, we have guidelines now. We have one request pending for a detached shed. We will review it in accordance with the guidelines, and we will make it match the house best we can. Public relations, we have, Debbie was here we had a nice potluck. Wish y'all could have, all of you could have joined us.
Well, they might want to take some home.
There's still
I
more
mean,
food
there's-
here. Everybody's
yeah.
hungry.
Dessert?
Please come help yourself.
And dessert.
And then the other thing that Public Relations done is work on the website, which I mentioned earlier. If you haven't looked at it yet, please do. If you have suggestions, let us know. If you have experience with website design or maintenance, please let us know. Get involved. I just can't say enough that this is everybody's neighborhood, and whatever we want for our neighborhood, we all need to be prepared to pitch in a little bit, because none of us are paid to do it.
So for public relations, next year, Liliana, we were talking, we've got a lot of plans coming for anybody who's interested, so. My son loves to be outside, but being in a wheelchair, it's hard to get him out, so we bring the outside to him. And anybody who knows me knows that I love to garden. I invite birds, butterflies, pollinators, all of that to my yard. So I have some no-waste bird seed that I'm very happy to give away here. I have some plants. And this is the kind of stuff, I have some wonderful plants that Dorothy has shared with me through the years. So I like to tell people, my friends and my family, I'm surrounded by them because they're out in my yard. And I'm happy to share that. And I hope that we can get more community, things that you enjoy sharing, like mosaics or arts and crafts or
Christmas decorations.
Christmas decorations.
That's coming up real soon.
And we have a grand door prize, and I see some members left, but the only thing that was required is that you're a member in good standing, and that means that you paid your dues. Maybe the law says differently, but you know what? I paid my dues faithfully, and every one of you here, I know has. So guess what? You're all eligible for this grand door prize.
Okay, thank you. Putting that
So
together.
did you put people's things in?
So is along the lines of public relations, everybody getting together, we've had a lot of comments about the entrances not looking as nice as they could. We have not, like I said, we didn't spend money on things like that, not knowing where the covenants restrictions were gonna go. They are back. We are now trying to budget and make a plan for the road fund, so there's not a lot of extra money for beautification. Anybody who wants to pitch in and help us decorate those up, contribute plants,
What are you
contribute
looking at
time.
me for?
No, I'm looking at you because you're the one that always does it.
You're bragging about how good she loves North Nursery.
She does do it, but she
I
can't
would
do it
love
all.
help. I would
She
love
has-
help
She
with
needs
the
help.
entrance, yeah.
We all need help. So if you have ideas, I just can't say enough, please get involved.
Yeah.
Okay?
It can be
So if
fun.
you have ideas, come to the meetings, get involved, and when people say, hey, we're gonna do a work day and work on our entrances, please show up.
Or contribute money. to buy some plants.
That's right.
Or contribute
I mean, a lot of
money.
people voted for a dues increase, it didn't pass, so maybe put a little bit of money towards buying.
Yep. We're gonna have to revisit that issue too, because we still have to get there. So let's go ahead and, Nick, if you could come up, please, and help fill in for, Clay was going to give a presentation, a brief presentation on profit and loss for the year, what our bills really were. We really don't have that many payments every month.
Can I hand these out? I mean, is
Sure.
this what we're,
Yep.
Okay.
Wait, which one is that?
the only one that I know of?
No, there should be two. One with the dues increase passed and one if it didn't.
This is not the budget yet, this is a Clay's P&L.
Gotcha. You can hand those out.
You can take a look if you want to see the handouts. It's very simple, so I'm just going to go over it in general terms, line by line. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm no longer the treasurer. Clay is. He couldn't be here for the emergency. But I worked with Clay pretty well throughout the year. I was the previous treasurer, helped set up the QuickBooks, and Clay has taken over. Also, as chair of the audit committee, I've been looking at the books throughout the year. Most of our audit work happens after the first of the year. So we're going to establish the committee members. If you have any interest, let me know at this meeting. I'm looking for about two more people in the audit committee. So let me just come up to my seat when I get back, and I'll take your name and number down. Real quick on the balance sheet, as you know, we talked about we have a road fund. Approximate balance is 180, right? 180,000. Because that's a little fluctuating, we haven't yet established that in the QuickBooks account, but we all know it's there. Our regular bank account as of today has $32,000 in it. It's an operating account we use to pay most of our bills. That's more than we need on an annual basis, so a portion of that is going to be deposited into the road fund very soon, before the end of the year. Going on the profit and loss that Clay has put together here, total homeowner dues collected for this year to date has been about $32,000. We have our general expenses that include landscaping and groundskeeping for the entrances, common areas, about $3,000. Our office supplies for the board running the association and their duties, $300. Postage, $90. The revitalization, as they talked about, they were able to have done for about $1,200. Other legal matters, $940. And these have all fallen into what was the established budget for this year. So I'm very confident in our financial position, that it's fallen within budget. Year to date looks good. I'm sure throughout the rest of the year it'll be in the same line. Again, we've not been kind of lucky on the repairs and maintenance, not had to spend too much there, a little over $200. And our utilities year to date is about $4,800. Again, the board has taken some steps in reducing all those costs, including the utilities. So again, we're in fine shape there. If you have any specific questions on any of these expenses, please write to the board, write to Clay. They can definitely answer it. It's very simple. There's not a lot of complexity there. What I'm going to do now is kind of switch over to the 2020 budget, proposed budget for 2020. I have a version here based on the current $400 a year dues. I'm going to pass these out through each table. If you don't mind spreading those around a little bit. Again, this is pretty straightforward and simple. The board is going to take a look at these and ask any questions that may arise.
Is that yours?
Yep, this is more here. Spread them around. Be able to get some?
Is there extra?
Oh, yeah, there's extras on the table, it's no big deal. Yep, come back. More. That. More. No. $180,000 is currently in the road fund. So let me go through this with you a little bit here. You can see the proposed approximate amount of collection is going to be $34,000 for hopefully 2020, based on our current amount and the current collection. I think that has a little bit of reserve for a couple folks that may or may not pay, but hopefully that will be reduced, as the attorney told you, he has a plan for that. We have the website and QuickBooks expense. QuickBooks is a monthly, because we do it online, it's a monthly service, so we pay for that as well, and maintenance of the website. We have an insurance expense which covers, is that the D&O expense?
The liability insurance
Liability
policy.
insurance, and liability as well?
Yeah, it's liability, it's mostly liability.
Perfect. Which again falls in line year to year what we had to do. So there's no big surprise on here. Office supplies is kind of based on historical. Postage and delivery, again, historical. They've set up professional fees, expense predictions on legal, corporate filing, and the meeting space rental for the meetings. Is there any comments that you want to make on the legal at all? What do you foresee in the upcoming year?
Is that to say $4,000 in there?
Yeah.
That was if we choose to have Jeremy completely redo all of our governing documents. He said he could do it for about $4,000. We expect that we can do a lot of that, save a lot of legwork, and you won't charge that much.
Yeah.
So we'd have left over to ask questions, maybe have them at the meetings.
Yeah. So again, just like, we did budget $8,000 for revitalization last year, the board has taken a lot of personal responsibility as a board to try and reduce those costs and do a lot of the legwork themselves. So I assume that the same is going to be for 2020, but it's good to have it earmarked there just in case we do need it. And then in the repairs and maintenance, you can see any kind of entrance common area expense, any kind of quick patches that may need to be done. We do want to allot a little bit of money for that. And the lawn care expense based on our historical expense there. Going down to the bottom, utilities, of course, we have to pay for the lights being on and that kind of thing. Total expenses, much less than our total income, and that net income number is basically what we are attributing to being deposited into the road fund. Question?
I'm sorry, did I miss why we're paying investment income taxes?
Do you want to speak on the investment income tax issue?
We are investigating whether we have to as a nonprofit.
Gotcha.
It has been done in prior years. So we are researching this now to see if we have to continue doing it.
So if earmarked,
What is that for?
so we make an interest,
oh,
we make,
oh.
on the investment account, there's dividend, well, there's interest accumulation, right? So,
Enough so that we have to pay $500 in taxes?
well, we hope so. We hope we make some money there. The issue is, we've allotted some expense in the budget for it. But if there's a financial accounting measure that we can do to circumvent having to pay that, we certainly will, or the board will. But yeah, we do want to earmark it just in case.
Okay, so basically, this is in case our investments produce return through dividends, not through fund growth.
Well, anything that would generate like a 1099 interest expense, interest income statement, you potentially would have to pay some type of income tax on it based on the return. Now, we have, like John said, we've had to do that in the past. However, there might be a way to file going forward, given the association's position, and might be able to circumvent it. However, it's always conservative to put it in the budget, just to be sure.
Our articles of incorporation they list us as a nonprofit corporation. We have not been listed as a tax exempt entity yet. We're not sure what's going to take to do that. There is a difference between tax exempt and nonprofit.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to explore that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Is there any other comments you want to make on the budget? Again, it's pretty straightforward. Most of the things are kind of fixed cost month to month.
Yeah, we're going to, because the dues increase did not pass, we're going to have to go back and reproject what we've done and see. I suspect in the next few months, probably real early next year, maybe even for the January meeting, we'll have a plan for how we can address this dues increase or assessment or something again, because we have to take care of these roads and be prepared to take care of them.
So that being said, I think that will not change what this budget looks like.
Yeah, it's not gonna allow us to put as much money into the road fund every year as we had hoped it would.
Yeah, right, so that net income is reflective of $400 a year dues, and looking to put the vast majority of that bottom line number into the road fund. I don't know what you, I think as a board, maybe you would take this proposal and vote on it as a board. I don't know if that's a general vote or not, but the audit committee has looked at it, see no issue with it, and would put it forward as something as a board could pass or vote on.
Yeah, so based on your recommendations, this looks like a sound budget for the coming year.
Yeah.
We, as the board, will take your recommendation into account, and we will vote to adopt this budget or not.
Okay, very good. Anyone have any questions? They certainly can send questions to the board. If it has anything to do with the audit committee, I'll answer anything that's forwarded to me.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Well, I guess that really brings us to close to the end of the meeting. The board will need to have a little bit of a board meeting. It's really an annual members meeting, but we have two things. We have to approve the budget, or we have to adopt the budget, or not, and we have to approve the minutes from our last meeting. So I will make a motion to adopt the budget as proposed by Nick. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so discussion, and I'm going to open the discussion up to the members. I know you didn't get much of a chance to look at it. Is there anything that you would like to comment on in the budget that you have a brief chance to look at there? Anything you see that you would like done differently before we approve this budget? Going once, going twice. All those in favor of adopting the budget, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? They left. Okay, so we have 7 out of 9.
Oh, we have Debbie and Sam. Hi, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so the budget is passed. Thank you. Did everybody get a chance, on the board now, I'm not talking to members, on the board, did you get a chance to see the minutes that Candy sent out several days ago? Any concerns, anything that doesn't look like what we talked about during the meeting? I guess, do I need a motion? All in favor of adopting the minutes? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we've adopted the minutes. All
And
right.
remind them that they'll see this on.
Oh, yes. So, from now on, all the minutes are going to be posted on our HOA website. Please get familiar with that. Huntington Estates HOA.org, all one word.
Will you post the tentative minutes from a meeting before they've been approved?
Probably not. We want a chance for the board to look at them, because she's going off of her notes, and if we see something that's different, we really don't want it out there for everybody, but to help with that, I've been trying, within a week or so after the meetings, to send out a newsletter, just an update to everybody, what we talked about. Well, before everybody starts leaving, you want to go ahead and do your drawing?
Well, she was checking for the email, so you're giving us permission?
Yes.
I think I had that. But, so we have a ledger here, and if
Well-
you didn't assign yourself in, I did initial as I saw y'all come in. But you may just want to check this, and if you approve of your email, then just maybe put a check by your name. And
We
that
need
will
a
tell me
positive
that it's
statement.
okay for
We
me
will
to
do that.
communicate with you. Thank you so much. You want some bird seed or bird? I know you guys, no?
And some dessert?
No waste bird seed?
Okay, so what we'll also do is we will send out an official form with the dues notice for you to sign, like we did last year. We still have that. When you get that in your dues notice this year, please fill it out and send it back and say, you will do business by email. That'll save everybody money. It'll save you money. I don't have anything else. It's y'all's time. Nope, we're not done yet. Anybody? Did you get most of your questions answered through the meeting? Nothing more to discuss? Anything you want to suggest going forward? Ways that the board could better serve your desires as a member?
I have two things I'd like to say. One, I'd like to thank the current board for all the work that they've done this year.
Yeah.
And the second one is on the budget, you'll see they budgeted $100 for meeting space. This church has voted to build a new building here, where we're meeting right now. It's $1 million building. One of the ways we're raising money is by collecting cans. So if any of you drink anything out of a aluminum can, please bring it and dump it in my yard.
Well,
So
bag
that's-
it first, don't just
Nice.
dump it,
Yeah.
I'd rather give you a
Grocery
dollar than a
bags are
truckload of
fine.
cans.
So we should
I'd rather give you a dollar than a truckload of cans.
We'll do that
We
too.
can do that too.
That might be $2.
We can do that too, but they
With
charge
that
us-
in mind-
they're only charging us $15 every time we use this building.
Yeah,
And
they've been
look
very
at how
generous.
nice this is, I mean, really, the facility.
How long do you think this will be available to us?
I don't know, but they let us meet down there before too, when they had this closed for a
Right.
while because of the
They
mold.
got to get a budget for it.
And,
Okay.
we've already got 220,000, I think.
Okay.
Out of a million?
That's a lot of cans.
cans?
No, that's not for cans. Most of that's donations, but the cans going into it too. So all the more cans you can give us, that would be fine. And if you give them to me, then my Sunday school class gets credit for them, and then we leave it. Right.
So, have you heard any talk about them raising their rental fee for this space? Okay. If you have, it would have been a good time to tell us before we just passed the budget.
But that does not mean that if anybody cares to donate to the church on behalf of the homeowners association, you're
For the
welcome
building
to.
fund, that would be good.
Okay, and that would be tax deductible, right?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if you had. I don't think I have anything more. Anybody else?
No complaints.
Let's get
Okay.
together more often.
Thank the voter, thank the
That's
vote
what I
counters,
say.
thank the vote counters, thank the vote counters.
Vote counters. Well,
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
thank you so
thank
much
you, guys.
for pulling all that together and being right out there in the open for everybody to see. You have separate boxes, I see, that you have all the envelopes saved and the votes in the.
Everything's in this box.
Perfect.
I have the tallies for the board of directors clipped together, and then the other votes are clipped together, and then our tallies are all in here too.
So if anybody ever wonders about that, that is part of the secretarial's records, secretary's records. And will stay that way. So if you ever want to go double count, you're more than welcome to do so. And Candy has a raffle.
Did people take the tickets or?
Meeting's still going, right? I'm just doing this.
We
as
can,
I- Go ahead.
I'll make
and
a
reach
motion
one.
to adjourn the meeting.
Well,
Second?
should we do the raffle before the meeting's adjourned?
We can, but it's not gonna hold up
She's not
business
here.
in any way. I'm done. Do y'all know? No, you wanna keep it going?
midnight yet,
How
Yeah,
does the
good.
raffle
Well, he
come
wasn't
about?
here for the meeting.
The raffle,
Yeah, you have to be in
I think we
attendance.
can say the raffle is entirely up
You
to
gotta
our
be here.
secretary. She voluntarily went out and bought this
Mike
gift
Fleury.
to share with everybody.
He's not here.
No, he was at the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was in attendance, so Mike Fleury got the grand door prize. And then we have these wonderful cooler bags, if anybody's interested.
I want one of those.
So, yes. So you want to reach in there one more time?
One more time or two more times?
Well, do we want to do two or one?
You too.
Okay, go for two. Not here. Keep going, girl.
Just hold the book.
Hard to get this one.
Oh, keep going.
Keep going. This one I want to turn.
Why aren't you doing those?
here.
Dig a little deeper in the well.
They left already?
He's on the board, so that wouldn't really be fair,
Why can't the board people?
but not here.
Not here.
There'd be more not here's than here's.
You can put everybody's name in there.
Not here.
Put in the names of people who show up.
Well, we've
No, I'm
got
just kidding. I'm just
90 She was here, Humphreys, okay, so there's one, okay. And then one more. Nope.
You need to come up with a better system.
Just give her a hand.
Well, what's the better system? I mean, hey, you're here.
Who's here?
Liliana Lindsay. Ooh.
That is nice. I got one of those last week.
Okay, thank you.
I use mine.
So what I try to do is make sure that everybody gets at least one chance. So if you've won in the past, you won't get a chance until it cycles around. But
Oh, you mean you've got everybody's names and then you put them back in for the next time?
you see my system, they get taped in here and I put the date on there and what they won.
Oh,
She's just too organized.
lawless.
I see.
Check on that. I don't know if my name's on any of them in there. That's really good to check.
So what are you gonna tell your friends and neighbors?
Should have come.
Attend the meetings. The food is great, the fellowship is wonderful, and you'll learn a lot about your neighbors and your board.